Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Addiesdive AD2023-1. I purchased this watch with a slight reviewer's discount from the Addiesdive Global Watches store on AliExpress. As always, I will be reviewing this watch as a $100 watch that it is. So the discount isn't going to sway my review one way or the other, and I'm pretty sure my reviewer discount was less than the discount you could get on this past sale. So yeah, take that into consideration. As always, if you find yourself wanting to pick one of these up, I'll be leaving an affiliate link down in the video description. That's where I purchased it from. If you use that link, you guys don't pay any extra. This channel will benefit from the small commission earned, which helps keep the channel going. So a huge thank you to anyone and everyone who has ever used an affiliate link. I'm still around doing what I like doing because of you guys. So yeah, huge thank you goes out to you guys. The current retail price for this watch is just under $100 US, and that's before any taxes or coupons or discounts. They currently have a code for $10 off a $99 purchase, so that'll bring the price down to about $80. So make sure you clip that coupon, and if you're patient, I think you'll be able to snag it for even less than that during the next big sale. So keep that in mind when you are shopping around. As for color options, black. You have black. That's it. Just black. Hopefully in the future they'll come out with some different colors. I think this is going to be a pretty good seller, so I think they will have some incentive to introduce some new colors. So just keep an eye out on the listings. Yeah, I think some blues and maybe some greens would be pretty cool on this watch. The watch case and bracelet and clasp are made of stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal, a screw down crown, a screw down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the Seiko VH31 sweeping quartz movement. So when I first saw this watch, I figured it was going to be a pretty popular watch, and based on the sales during the last anniversary sale, I think it was a very popular watch, and with good reasons. I think even at its full price, it's a pretty compelling watch. It's a small, vintage-inspired homage watch with a sweeping quartz movement on a bracelet, beautiful watch head, and yeah, I mean it's $100. What's really not to like? I think it's a winning combo if they pull it off well. So let's find out if they did. We'll get into the full review. Before we do, doing a quick wrist check today, wearing my Chronos GMT Pepsi. Still absolutely loving this watch. This is probably the watch that I've had in the collection the longest, I think. But yeah, it is running beautifully, holding up well, and it looks absolutely fabulous still. So yeah, very happy with this purchase. All right, let's get into the dimensions of the watch. We have a diameter of 37 millimeters, thickness of 11.3 millimeters, 19 millimeter lug width. Lug tip to lug tip is 45.8 millimeters, and sized up for my 7.5 inch wrist with one link removed. It weighs just under 104 grams. So I think the dimensions are great. That 37 millimeter case gives it a little bit more bulk than the 36. I think this is going to be good for a lot of wrist sizes. The only real negative I see is the 19 millimeter lug width. I think proportionally, I think it looks pretty good, but just the convenience of having 20 millimeter lugs would have been beneficial, at least for me. I have tons of 20 millimeter straps. I have one 19 millimeter strap. Thankfully, 19 millimeter straps are becoming pretty available now. They're readily available from multiple brands, but I have a great strap collection, and they're all 20 millimeters. So the fact that this is 19, it's a little bit of a gut punch for me. Hopefully you guys, you might have 19 millimeters already, or you might be willing to purchase 19 millimeter straps. So that's really my only complaint about it. Otherwise, I think the case is pretty nice, a very thin profile, as you can see here. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but yeah, it's a nice case. It's very comfortable. It's super lightweight as well, so you barely notice it on wrist. So I'm going to go outside and throw it on mine for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and as you can see, it wears pretty good. I've got really no complaints about how this thing wears. I think the size is nice. It's kind of got that vintage size to it. Really nice thin case profile, as you can see right there. Yeah, just very happy with it. The crystal looks awesome. Lots of blue AR coating. You can see them underneath this big oak tree here, so it's giving a little bit of problems, but in real life, it's not really an issue at all. And I think it looks very, very good, easy, nice to read. Yeah, not sure what else to say. The bracelet is pretty lightweight, which we'll talk about later, but it does feel very balanced on my wrist. So yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Here we are. This is out from under that tree. Unfortunately, no sun at the moment. Hopefully we'll get some sun with the straps, but yeah, I think it still looks pretty good. It's very legible. I think the crystal is nice. I mean, it just the case profile on this thing is excellent. I think it looks really good. So here we are on my suede strap, which is linked down below. It's 20 millimeters, but this one squeezes pretty good, and I think that looks absolutely awesome. I'm not going to spend too much time on straps today just because of the odd lug width, and it takes some time and, you know, kind of ruins some of the straps, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I got 2 other straps after this one, and we'll get back to this review. But yeah, that is really nice looking, actually. Yeah, that looks really good. Here we are. This is a 20 millimeter Perlon strap, 1 layer underneath the watch there. The nice thing about these Perlon straps is they squeeze pretty good, so this actually looks perfectly fine. So yeah, that's another option for you guys. And here we are on a 19 millimeter, my only 19 millimeter strap. This is a ribbed nylon strap, 2 layers underneath the watch there. Still very comfortable, super lightweight still, and I mean, this thing is just, it feels like nothing is on the wrist. I think it looks good. I think it feels good. It's very comfortable. I think it's a really nice combo. But that's it. So let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. So let's talk about the case finishing on this thing. And case finishing is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. You can see on the tops of the lugs here, you kind of have an angular brushing or maybe a circular brushing on it. So it's not a vertical brushing. Not a huge fan of that. I know that's kind of typical with vintage style watches, but yeah, just the fact that it doesn't match the bracelet brushing kind of bothers me, but that's how it is on these watches. So it's not a big deal, and I think it's done actually really nicely. You can see here it's very even and consistent throughout, and I think they did a pretty good job. You have a fully polished bezel, as you can see there, really nicely done as well. Yeah, not a difficult process on a bezel like this, so yeah, I think they did a good job on it. Flipping it to the case sides here, and you can see really nice case sides, very thin case profile, really nicely sculpted as well. You can see there it's nicely rounded, so it's not just a straight up and down case, so it plays with the light really nice and kind of hides its thickness even more. It's not a thick watch, but it just hides that thickness even more, and I think it looks really good. You have a signed screw down crown there, which is also a good size, nice and grippy. Yeah, I think the case finishing on this is very nicely done. I mean, really nice. Right on par with Saint Martin, in my opinion. I see no reason to say that Saint Martin is better than this one. The SN020 and 021. I mean, they're yeah. I mean, look at the case transitions, nice and crisp. I mean, that's Saint Martin levels there. So, really happy with the watch head on this thing. It looks excellent. Flipping it over to the case back here, you can see circular brushing on the bottom of the lugs. The brushing there is not great. The finishing is not great, but it's on the bottom, so you never see it, so it's not a big deal. It's got your typical coin edge screw down case back. Yeah, not a fan of those, but it is what it is. And then you can see here you got your Addiesdive logo with your kind of spec sheet around the outside. Yeah, no real issues with that. It's very low profile case back. It kind of bothers my wrist a little bit. This is not as smooth as it could be, I think, but it's really not that bad, and I think that's something that you could pretty easily take care of if you wanted to. And the bottom edge here, it's again a little sharp, but it really didn't bother me. This watch is so lightweight that you don't really have to tighten it down too much on the strap. So yeah, again, it bothered me just a little bit, but not too bad. All right, so let's talk about the crystal on this thing. We'll test it for sapphire first. As you can see, sapphire crystal. And I mean, the crystal on this thing is absolutely gorgeous. Very, very nicely done. You can see it's a top hat style crystal, so nice and clear on the inside, but plenty of distortion right at the edges. You got a lot of purplish blue and a reflective coating. Yeah, it's really good. You can see here, it does show a lot of reflections in certain lighting, so I wouldn't take my studio lights very seriously when it comes to the crystal reflections. In everyday use, it's pretty good. It's definitely a little bit domed on the top, so sometimes you get these crystals and they're perfectly flat on the top. I prefer that. This one is just slightly domed, and so you do pick up just a little bit more reflections than you normally would, I'd say. So that's really my only complaint. It's a good crystal, especially at this price point. It's an excellent crystal. I mean, you can see just how nice that looks. I mean, it is It is really a nice crystal. Right, so let's get real close and we'll talk about the dial on this thing. And the dial is, again, nicely done. It is a matte black dial, so not glossy, not sunburst or anything like that. It's just a flat black dial. And I think it looks pretty good. You have white printing everywhere, white printed hour markers and batons 3, 6, and 9. Those are all loomed with BGW9 Lume. The Lume on the hands is also BGW9. We'll get to the Lume shot in just a little bit, but you can see the color match during the daytime is perfect, spot on. I've got no issues with that. The Addiesdive logo there, again, it's a love or hate thing. You know, it's big and it's bold and it kind of looks a little messy from a ways away. When you get up close, you can see what they're trying to go for, but yeah, I think they could clean that up somehow. Even just printing Addiesdive across might be better. And then you have your Deep Sea Hunter. I think that's kind of their, maybe a series of watches. I'm not really sure. I see that on a lot of their watches. So yeah, it doesn't bother me. It's kind of unoffensive down there. I really wish they would just, maybe print quartz or maybe just leave that off there. But it is what it is. And I've got no issues with the printing on the dial. It looks pretty good. You can see the hour markers. It's kind of hard to show it, but you can definitely see it in some of my macro stuff. They're a little bit raised, just a little bit. It's something you don't really notice unless the light hits it kind of at a steep angle. Then you do notice it a little bit, but otherwise they just look pretty flat painted onto the dial. But the printing is done really nicely. The handset they chose, I think, is perfectly sized. Reaches right out to the minute track there, second hand sweeping along. Again, nicely done, and there's no real fluff under the dial. Even under macro, I think the hands look pretty good. There's a little bit of sharp kind of burring on that minute hand, as you can see. I don't know if you can see it right there, but it's just not as clean as it could be. But again, this is a $100 watch, so perfectly acceptable. And again, I think they chose a good handset for it. The Lume on this thing is a mixed bag kind of. So I'm going to pop up a Lume shot right now. And as you can see, it is BGW9. It has that nice, cool blue color to it. You can see it against a couple other watches in the collection that also have printed dials. The San Martin on the left is an anomaly. It is excellent Lume. This one can't hang with that. The dial does fade pretty quickly on this watch, so that's a little bit of a bummer. The hands do hang on nicely. But you can see against another watch that's kind of a cheaper printed BGW9 dial, the Bernie on the right, it definitely does better than that watch. So yeah, the Lume is good on this one. It's just not great. So yeah, I do think it's a selling point of the watch. I think it's good enough to be a selling point of the watch. It's just not, top of the line Lume. Okay, so let's talk about the movement in this thing. And the movement is excellent. It's the VH31 by Seiko. I've had this movement in quite a few watches already. It's a 2-year battery life, so that's kind of the only downside of it. 2-year battery life, but you get 4 ticks of the second hand every second. So that's nice to see. It kind of gives you that mechanical look, but you get the accuracy and reliability of the quartz movement. It's a great movement. I have zero complaints with it. It is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown here. And again, the grip on the crown is good. I think the size is good, proportional with the case. You get a nice satisfying pop out there. The threading in and out, no issues with that either. Popping it out to the first position hacks the movement, so it's a no date movement, which is awesome because it's a no date dial. And yeah, you just set your time just like you would expect on a Seiko movement. You press it in there, you don't get any jumping of the hands or anything like that, and everything works exactly like you would expect it to work. I believe the accuracy on these things are plus or minus 20 seconds a month, so you really don't ever have to worry about setting the time on this thing. They're great movements. I have zero complaints with them. I love them, and I want to see more companies use them. I'm glad that Addiesdive made a watch like this with that movement. I think it's a really good movement for this watch. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. And the bracelet is okay. It is 19 millimeters, like I said, tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. It's a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. You have brushing on the top of the links here. You have polishing on the sides. You have push pins for sizing. I had to remove one link for my 7.5-ish inch wrist, and I'm on the biggest micro adjust. This thing might fit up to 7 3/4, so just keep that in mind. But I think the bracelet is acceptable. It's very lightweight. That's my only real complaint about it. It does have female pivot end links. Even the end of that link is nicely finished, as you can see there. So it's nice that they took some attention to detail. The end links themselves, they follow the case curvature nicely, and they're in there pretty tight. There's maybe, I mean, they're in there pretty good. They do wiggle just a little bit. The spring bars, thought I would just mention those. Those are fine. They're 1.8 millimeter spring bars, so they're, you know, not cheap, but not great spring bars. But yeah, I think overall the finishing on the bracelet is pretty good. Definitely not up to par with the case, but I don't think it's bad. Working our way to the clasp here, you have your signed Addiesdive logo there on the clasp, nice and big. Polished chamfers on the sides, brushing on the top, brushing on the sides. You have 5 levels of micro adjust there, so plenty of micro adjust. It is milled on the inners. It is nice and tight on these tolerances here, so yeah, you have no issues opening or closing this thing. I wouldn't say the clasp is super comfortable. One of these surfaces down here, I believe it's this bottom edge here of the scissor, kind of bothers my wrist. So just keep that in mind. I think I could take a file to that and just trim, you know, just kind of soften that edge a little bit and it will be all right. As for the other corners on this thing, these are nice and rounded, so no issues there. And the functionality of the clasp is perfectly acceptable. The micro adjust holes, I don't know if you guys can even see it, but they just aren't finished very nicely. Yeah, I mean, you can see here this last hole is smaller than these other holes, and I had a little bit of an issue with the micro adjust. Eventually, I mean, it worked itself out and it's fine. And I noticed one other person said that they had one of these holes was kind of on an angle a little bit, and they couldn't use that hole. So yeah, just something to note. You might get a bad clasp. Overall, though, I think the bracelet is fine. It's definitely the weak point of the watch, and that's kind of par for the course with Addiesdive. Their bracelets are always good, just not great. I think this watch head deserved a really great bracelet, and this just isn't quite up there. It's a very lightweight bracelet. I haven't felt one this lightweight in quite a while. So just something to note. Just don't expect much from the bracelet. I think you'll be happy. It does have kind of a vintage feel to it, so I guess it has that going for it. But yeah, it's fine. It's just not a great bracelet. So there you go, guys. That is the Addiesdive AD2023-1. I think it's a pretty nice watch. If you can get this thing for like $75 or something like that, I think you should go for it. There's not too many downfalls at that price point. The $100, I'd like to see a little bit of a nicer bracelet, but you're pretty much always going to be able to pick this up on a sale. So I think that it kind of gives it a little bit of a pass. You get a great movement. You get a beautiful crystal. The watch head itself is awesome. The lume is acceptable. And I mean, yeah, it's a great looking watch for sure. It looks the part. Yeah. And I think for the price, I think it's really good. I think I'm actually going to give this watch to my dad, since his Timex just broke. So, see if he wants this one. But yeah, I do really like this watch. I think it's a pretty good buy. So, yeah, again, if you guys are interested in picking this one up, head down to the video description. That is an affiliate link. Thank you guys for using my affiliate links. You're not paying more. I'm definitely clip that coupon, find it in their store, clip it, save it. That'll save you $10 right away. So, yeah, I say go for it. I think that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.